Don't you worry, the clip's about to begin, but don't forget to subscribe. Or else. Don't make me turn this website around.
Jay in Virginia. Jay, you're on the air. What would you like to talk about?
Hey, how you doing?
Doing fine. How are you?
Hello?
Yeah, we're here.
I always wondered, how do people go to church every Sunday? Praise God of Jesus. But then hate people at the same time. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So the question is basically how are people heading to church, having all of these questions or talks about love and loving your neighbor, and yet then they go out and don't seem to practice it at all? Is that what you're kind of getting at?
Yeah. It's like I asked somebody one time, it was on Facebook like a year ago, and when they was putting the kids in the cages and stuff.
Right.
And the lady said, well, Obama did it too. I said, well, if Obama did it too, he wrong. He's wrong. So then I asked her, we was going back and forth, and I said, what does your heaven look like when you get there? What is it going to look like? And she came back and said, what you mean? I said, when you get to your heaven, what is it going to look like? Who's going to be there? She never came back and, back to what I said. You understand what I'm saying? What is your heaven going to look like when you get there and you don't care about people on earth?
Right. Well, Seth, you want to take it away?
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I think people do this for a huge majority of reasons. I think sometimes religion allows them to feel morally superior while they are being awful. I think there are some people who find religious excuses and justifications to be bigots. I mean, how many white supremacists have we seen who are quoting the name of God and waving their Bibles and talking about Jesus, etc.? I think there are some people who are in denial. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but I think there's a ton of reasons why people shield themselves with religion or immerse themselves in religious cultures, while at the same time, they are the antithesis of the best teachings of Jesus Christ. It is epidemic. It is everywhere in the evangelical Republican Party in the United States. All you got to do is look around. You see tens of millions of people who have supported in a candidate a guy who is the antithesis of the best teachings of Christ: goodness and honesty, character, integrity, charity, don't take vengeance, that type of thing. So I share your frustration. Sadly, I have no solution. I think there's a lot of reasons, none of them good.
Yeah, I think we see a tendency toward hypocrisy in a lot of ideologies. So even when we think about something, because it wouldn't be a show talking about politics if someone didn't bring up Nazis. When we look at something like Nazism, and I have to have this argument now 100 times a week with people who go, but the Nazis were the socialist party. That's what the Z in Nazi is. And then you mention the whole right, but then you add the nationalist part to them, that they were nationalist socialists. That's where you get to the fascism of it all. And so you have these terms that it's like independently, they seem to be totally opposing each other, and then you put them together to justify hypocrisy. So with Christianity, that's what I see across the board, where you have these people that are like, well, luckily we have this book that we can morph the words to justify anything. Sometimes you don't have to morph the words. I think that there is a lot in the Bible that is just horrible without changing a single letter. But you do have, as Seth was talking about, the current Christian antithesis is the president, which the thing that is wild about that is there is this concept of the Antichrist in the Bible, and Trump almost reads it like a personality outline. And I don't know how there aren't more Christians going like, hey, this person who has found the love of Christians, has found the love of Israel, and has made his way to political power while having all of this radical support. And then you're reading all the other things about the Antichrist, how no Christian has gone like, we're not doing the Antichrist right now, are we? Now, obviously, I don't believe in an actual Antichrist, but it's weird that they are so gung-ho as though as though they're reading the revelations and going, well, let's fulfill this one on purpose.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell y'all a quick story right quick. Can I tell y'all a quick little story?
Go ahead.
My dad, I went to church every Sunday with my dad. Me and my brothers. And he had his own gospel group. My mom didn't go to church. But my mom, she believed in God and Jesus, but she didn't go to church with us. But my mom always told her and my aunt, always told her stories about when they used to go to church when they was little, and the preachers used to be doing everything bad under the sun. I'm talking about messing around in the church, doing this and doing that. And it's like my mom always put something in my head about, like, stuff ain't always what, what I'm talking about. It's like, listen to her. I never going to church with my dad all the time, I never felt like it was real. And my brothers too. And, it's just, I never thought like, well, ever, I don't know. It's just how it was with me and my brothers. I never got indoctrinated to Jesus was real, God was real. It was always something like, something ain't right.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I hear what you're talking about. I can't say I know from experience, because I think I would pay a lot of money to change my background to being born into a family where I had an option of religion, and my identity wasn't the way I refer to it most often is that my identity was issued to me, and my worth was then graded upon how well I maintained the issue. And so it may be that you actually ended up in a pretty good position there, that it sounds like you had some family that allowed you some freedom to make some decisions for yourself, which is something I will only
my mom
envy
always
you for.
this kind of person, never gonna tell you how to think or how to be or how to, she was always, my dad, he went, he was in church and whatever, but he never forced it on us either.
Right.
So, but just listening to my mom growing up, just listen to her, man. Just people phony. People, it's just always all in my mind, like, something ain't clicking right. You know what I'm talking about? It never got to me like that.
And I think
we share your frustration, man.
Yeah, definitely. And the first point is the one that I like to draw attention to in general, because it's just like, how do you reconcile love thy neighbor with build the wall? It's really, really tough. But Jay, we'll give you a last word, last thought before we let you go here. I'm
like you, man. I care about people. I mean,
absolutely.
Always how I always will,
Good.
I care about kids. I care about race. Don't mean nothing to me. I mean, never raised like that. I don't get it, but that's it.
All right. Well, thank you so
Thanks,
much
Jay.
for your words, Jay.
All right. Bye-bye.
We'll see you. Good. Yeah, the hypocrisy is probably something we could do a great many hours of, literally just pointing out example after example of how it's supposed to be. Like I said, love thy neighbor, but build a wall. A house divided, and yet how we couldn't be more divided than we are right now in the United States, except for maybe just before the Civil War. I guess we were pretty divided back then, but right now it's looking pretty bad too. That I can't rule out a future civil war feels bad,
I think a lot of it is rooted in authoritarianism and religious thinking, because we find statistically that people who hold to superstition are much more susceptible to conspiracy narratives like the QAnon, etc. Right. We've seen a successful demonization of everybody who is not an evangelical Republican. So what they have done is they have so demonized people like you and me, who are humanist, who are secular, atheist, liberal, whatever, non-evangelical Republican, that in their mind, no matter how awful Trump is, and they'll admit, oh, he's not a good guy, but God can use awful men. That's another one of my favorite little lines. But what has happened is that they have decided, no matter how terrible Donald Trump is, at least he's not in league with the devil. This has then given them a moral pass, right? It's an abdication of moral responsibility because now, as someone who is primed for authoritarianism and savior figures, they believe that this man was brought to power as king, really. Right. Then they have surrendered their mind, their heart, their votes, their allegiance, all of those types of things, and a religious model, a cult model. There's a lot of psychology behind, I think, what's happening here. I'm personally terrified because even if Trump loses in a couple of weeks, the millions who enabled him and who think like him remain. And it's a scary time.
Maybe you'll find this story amusing. I hope you do. But so my family basically fell apart in the last month. And so right now there's a lot of people not talking to other people. A lot of people recently yelled at other people. And I ended up in a few arguments in a row with my dad before the last one. And we haven't spoken. But one of the last ones we had talked about, I was more trying to give a funnel ribbing. And the ribbing was essentially like, while Trump was having his COVID stuff, going, boy, it'd be tough to be a believer right now and have to reconcile whether or not God is literally sending a pestilence to Trump to signal that you should not vote for him, as this is happening right before the election. And my dad, very condescending, comes back with, this is very basic biblical stuff. Just look at what happened with Joseph. God uses imperfect people and tough situations all the time. To which I responded like, cool, I'll take your Joseph and I'll raise you one Moses, where God actually sent a literal plague to signal that it was time to overthrow the government. And so I did not get a response from that one. I hope, I enjoyed it because he did that. This is very basic biblical stuff. And I understand the basic biblical thing is take however you feel already and pick a Bible verse that'll support it. Yeah. But that's not how I roll. Yeah. Hey, thanks for checking out this clip for The Line. While you're here, hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and then share this with that bitter uncle of yours who loves talking about the good old days.